Ladies and gentlemen, the last point for our day, for this day now. And firstly, I would like to thank you all, everyone, for joining our conference here in Berlin for our first official digitization event of the German G20 presidency. As State Secretary Machnik said this morning, today's launch is an important first step in defining G20 actions in this area. I would like to thank the OECD for co-organizing our conference, as well as for the work that went into providing us with an excellent background paper for this conference that formed the basis of the discussions today. And I also want to thank my colleagues from my team, and I want to thank the colleagues from the Ministry of Economics here in Berlin involved in preparation of this conference. You all made a very good job. Thank you very much. And my thank is also to Mr. Siegele for the good moderation today here. Ladies and gentlemen, I heard a lot of recommendations throughout our event on what G20 can do to foster sustainable economic growth and social prosperity through digitization. But this is only the starting point. As the digital economy evolves, so must our policies approach it. This is why Germany is proposing a longer-term roadmap for the G20 to implement the recommendations that will go to the ministers in April this year in Düsseldorf. It is why we have been seeking your input today, and I think today it was a good start. This morning, during the panel, we noted 4 areas in the OECD report where we see a role for the G20: closing the digital divide, competition, norms and standards, and trust and transparency. There are a number of other points that were also highlighted today in the report and throughout the various sessions. We have seen it here in the last session. For example, access. The adoption of digital technologies is at various stages of digital development across the G20. There are a number of barriers that typically include some combination of the issues I have already mentioned. For example, a lack of high quality and affordable infrastructure, a lack of trust in digital technologies and activities, or a lack of interoperability of standards, to name only a few. Another area, more specifically, small and medium-sized enterprises. SMEs are the engine of most of our economies, but in the use of technology, they stay behind their larger counterparts, as Ms. Ramos noted in her presentation tomorrow. Therefore, we need to make sure SMEs can overcome barriers to the adoption of digital technologies. In particular, that they have the resources to acquire the necessary complementary knowledge-based assets such as organization and human capital. Another important area of action for the G20, it's also mentioned, is a free flow of information. Digitization generates a vast amount of data which can be used to drive economic growth, enable innovation, facilitate trade, and improving well-being. Privacy and data protection are preconditions for the free flow of information within and across borders. But we also need to ensure that fundamental rights are protected. Beyond all these policy areas, it is also important that we recognize the importance of addressing digital transformation horizontally. This means that governments have to tackle cross-sectoral and across policy areas in the face of the growth of the Internet of Things and new fields of action such as smart cities or intelligent mobility. A policy action or standard developed for one sector needs to take into account others as a lines become more and more blurred. For example, as cars become autonomous, transportation and telecommunications policies will need to be coordinated. We also, ladies and gentlemen, need the multi-stakeholder approach to digital economy development. I think this is a very, very important point. Digitization touches all sectors of the economy and all parts of the society. Therefore, it is essential that a range of actors contribute to the discussion. Today, we have heard from business, labor, civil society, and a number of others. We can achieve this objective through conferences like this one and our upcoming high-level multi-stakeholder conference event in April in Düsseldorf, one day before the ministerial meeting. We also need to remember that we are, even in the G20, at a different stage of development. Therefore, solutions, where possible, should be scalable and focus on foundational issues like growth, sustainability, and trust. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, the G20 Task Force Digital Economy will meet for the first time. I hope we will take into account what we have heard today in our further consultations. I look forward to working with you over the next several months to develop the focused strategic action plan, a plan that will help us to create together stronger digital policies for the future. Thank you all again for your participation in today's conference and for your support in our important work. All the best for you. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, one more note for the registered participants of our tomorrow's working group. We have prepared, especially for you, an evening reception starting at 6 p.m. in a restaurant nearby. There are 2 shuttle buses available in front of our ministry. They will start 5:45, and then they come back to the ministry. So if you are ready at 5:45, you can drive with the first bus. Otherwise, you have to wait 10 or 15 minutes, and then the bus will be there again. I therefore ask you to go to the buses after our conference is ended. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that we will find good solutions in the G20 presidency of digitization. Thank you.